Nick Tandy and Mathieu Jaminet led a Porsche 1-2 gridlock at Indy this past weekend. As far as IMSA goes, this has been the second time in 3 races they've come home with a victory. Their 1-2 marks the first in GTP history, and their IMSA championship hopes are now as tangible as Acuras or Cadillacs. Porsche also fought for their lives at Fuji a couple weeks ago, fending off the incredibly dominant Toyotas for most of the race. So what gives? Let's talk about Porsche's string of success later in this video, but first, a quick summary of Indy and the championship stakes in GTP Hypercar. Porsche had a commanding grip on the entire weekend, likely the most dominant performance by a single manufacturer in IMSA all year. Not only did Matt Campbell set the fastest time in practice, both Porsche Penskes qualified and finished 1-2, albeit in opposite orders. The only noteworthy period where a Porsche did not lead the race was after the number 31 Action Express Cadillac seized the lead under yellow, after both Porsches took too long to adhere to the wave-by procedures. The 2 leading Porsches didn't pass the slower class quickly enough under the safety car. Given the fan backlash, there's a good chance that ruling will be reviewed in the off-season. Durrani led for 25 laps until a driver error into turn 1 led him to get overtaken by both Porsches with about an hour to go. The Action Express Cadillac would eventually shuffle back to 4th behind the number 25 BMW. 5th and 6th would go to the 2 Acuras, 7th to the number 1 Chip Ganassi Cadillac, 8th and 9th to the 2 privateer Porsches of JDC Miller and Proton, with the 2nd BMW bringing up the rear. As mentioned before, the championship is still anybody's, with Porsche closing the gap on Wayne Taylor Racing and Action Express, who quietly moved up to 1st. Technically, there are still 7 cars mathematically eligible to take the title, a sort of monument to this year's rule set in BOP. Porsche have won 3 out of the 5 sprint races this season, and also finished 2nd at Laguna Seca. I believe I have an explanation for this. In my previous video, we iterated on the strengths and weaknesses of Porsche Penske. Drivers of the number 5 Porsche, Dane Cameron and Frederick Makovicky, chimed in on some of Porsche's struggles in an interview with Motorsport.com. They highlighted changing race conditions and their very narrow tire optimization window as a primary issue. Tires in general, at least in racing environments, function the most efficiently in a very narrow temperature window. When track temps are too low, the car can't generate optimal grip. Too high, and tire degradation speeds up. The Porsche seems to only be able to exceed in an extremely narrow temperature window. Longer races generally have more varying track temperatures. This could explain why they're so much more consistent in shorter races. According to trend, Porsche might struggle a bit at Road Atlanta with its changing track temperatures over the course of the 10-hour day-to-night contest. While the odds might be against them, the number 6 Porsche Penske will go into Road Atlanta only 5 points behind the leading Action Express Cadillac. Time will tell if they can overcome their tire optimization issues and win the inaugural GTP championship. Porsche have been reportedly developing the 963 for 2024. Will we eventually see Porsche begin to dominate the hypercar era, or is competition these days just too strong? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and thanks for tuning in.